Well, thank you for joining us for an important topic on healthcare and cybersecurity. You know, HHS released a paper recently on all of the cyber attacks that have been occurring. And one of the things that HHS said was it's time for people that are in the healthcare ecosystem to double down on cybersecurity with urgency. And so that's why the title is called Doubling Down on Cybersecurity with Urgency. And this is from the perspective of the employer, the sponsor of health plans. And so as we talk about this quickly, we're going to be focused on kind of what employers might want to be thinking about. And I'm an outside lawyer with a law firm, McAfee Taft, that provides counsel to healthcare highways and employers and TPAs, et cetera. It feels like cyber attacks are everywhere. You know, you can read about them. You can Google cyber attacks in healthcare and find all sorts of things online, all sorts of articles where people all over the country are focused on this, and the government is focused on it. And I think that is the piece I would encourage you all here today, is that right now the focus is on the business associates serving health plans and the way cyber attacks have impacted them. But I think you'll see from some of the things I'm going to cover quickly that at some point in the future, it may be health plans and employers that are the focus of government investigation. And so that's why it's important for us to be taking action right now to think about what we can do to protect our participants' data. So HHS tells us that healthcare is particularly vulnerable to cybersecurity risks. The stakes are particularly high because of the confidential information that health providers and health plans have, and vendors that serve all of those. And so there's kind of an increased focus for good reason, because of the kinds of data that healthcare captures for all of us when we go to the doctor. Clearly, the HHS shows their statistics indicate that cyber attacks and ransomware in particular are on the uptick. I think they've said over the past 5 years there has been a 256% increase in large breaches reported to OCR involving hacking, and a 264% increase in ransomware. So I think the cyber attacks are for sure on the rise, and it seems like it's not slowing down. I find it interesting that the government says right now that we are not prioritizing the investigation of health plans. Not right now. So they say that in one publication, they said the government says we're not prioritizing investigation of health plans. And another paper, which I think from April of 24, OCR, the Office of Civil Rights, indicates that their investigation in other entities is secondary. Well, that means to me that, again, they're focused right now on Change Healthcare, which has been in the media. But I think it's the employer plans that I'm worried about, and maybe plans like what you offer to your employees, that I think we can be taking action right now to better prepare ourselves. And so at some point when their interest goes from being secondary to primary, that we've kind of got a story and a plan about what we do to protect data. I think it's interesting also to think about, for a long time, many of you probably have 401k plans or retirement plans, and the government has issued pretty clear, EBSA, the Employee Benefits Security Administration, the portion of the Department of Labor, has issued papers on retirement plan cybersecurity, or at least that's the way I've thought about it, because retirement plans have participant assets, their retirement savings. And so for several years now, there's been lots of discussion at conferences and in publications about efforts that plan sponsors should be taking to protect participant information and really their retirement money. But those same concepts can carry over to the health plan space. And I think it's time for all of us to be focused on the health plan side. Responsible plan fiduciaries have an obligation to ensure proper mitigation of cybersecurity risks. And so this is, again, longstanding commentary from the Department of Labor about what they expect all of us to in terms of meeting our fiduciary obligations. The latest guidance that OCR has issued has reminded plan sponsors of health plans of certain obligations, including the obligation to have business associate agreements. And so this would be an easy thing for us to all do right now, is make sure with your network, your TPA, your PBM, your lawyers, people that potentially have PHI, protected health information, that you have business associate agreements in place. And I would understand what those business associate agreements say about when they're going to notify you if they have a breach, which is again what we've been talking about and all these things that are in the media. When do they have to notify you? What do they have to tell you? What's the time frame? Key kind of things like that are things I would be talking to your vendors about. I would step away even maybe from the legal kind of technical stuff and just have a conversation with your vendors about what they do to protect your data. And I would document the conversations that you've had with your vendors about their cybersecurity practices and procedures. And then also, of course, keep notes of what business associate agreements you have. And if you need to get some in place, then make sure you get those in place now. The other thing that OCR has reminded us about as health plan sponsors is the notice obligations that come to play. So if you have a business associate that tells you, hey, I have been a victim of a cyber attack, then the question becomes, what did they get? What kind of information did the bad actors get related to your plan? And then there might be notice obligations, and that's the other piece that OCR wants us to think about, is not just do we have a business associate agreement in place, but also making sure we're getting out notices to people and to the government and maybe the media, depending on the size of the HIPAA event. OCR wants us to remember that. OCR has put out several resources, and anytime the government puts out resources for us to look at and think about as health plan sponsors, we need to take advantage of those. And I think it would be good for you to look at them maybe with your HIPAA, whoever does your HIPAA compliance or helps you with HIPAA compliance, and again, maybe with your vendors, but go through some of the resources that OCR has put out that we have on the slide here in front of you, kind of these links, including, for example, there's one about ransomware in HIPAA where they walk through a fact sheet about steps that you should be taking maybe to prevent ransomware attacks and prepare yourself if you have one. One thing I would say too, just going off script a little bit, is be a little kind. We're all real critical to throw stones at our vendors when bad things happen to them, but it may be your turn at some point because you can read about AT&T. I think I read something about a hotel system recently. There's hospital systems. It feels like everybody is being victimized by these kind of yucky cyber criminals. But anyway, it's still good for us to be taking action now to protect ourselves and to protect our participant data. So in summary, action steps that you can take: review your business associate agreements, know what they say. You might look at beefing them up if you need to ensure that your business associates have obligations to notify you, to tell you what they learn about what's happened to them. Talk to your vendors. Review the OCR resources carefully, and again, leave a breadcrumb trail. Document in some sort of a notes or some sort of a file what you've done to talk to each of your vendors about your business associate agreement and what they're doing to protect data. Go over those OCR resources with them, and again, keep notes. And then I put on here, review the EBSA cybersecurity program best practices. You can Google this. And again, I've thought about this historically as being something that applies for the retirement side, but they want us to have a formal, well-documented cybersecurity program. I think that's a good thing for us to do on the health plan side. Also, conduct annual risk assessments. Ask your vendors if they get third-party audits of their cybersecurity policies and procedures. That's going to be something that's important. And then lastly, know about your notice obligations. The one thing I would say about this is whenever there's a cyber or a security incident that happens, when someone has gotten into a system and we're trying to determine, or the vendor, your business associate is trying to determine what happened, one of the questions employers have is, when do my notice obligations, when are they triggered? And so if you have somebody that said, hey, we had something happen, we don't really know if it impacted you or not, it's my opinion, and I would consult with your lawyer, but it's my opinion that it's likely that your notice obligation isn't triggered until you know it impacted your plan. And typically at that point, there's a 60-day notice deadline where you've got to give impacted participants notice of what happened. You may have to also give notice to the media, depending on the number of people impacted. You may have to give notice of the event to the Office of Civil Rights. And you also may need to give notice to state attorney generals. And so you need to be thinking about these kind of 4 different types of notices. And I would just encourage you to think of the 60-day deadline as kind of being the critical timeline. And I would talk to your lawyer about when that deadline starts for you. Again, I think for a lot of times these happen, it's when we know that it impacted our plan and we know what data they accessed, but other lawyers may have a different opinion. Well, thank you for joining us today, and I hope you find this information helpful as we work to protect participant data. Thank you.